Welcome to another video by Flat Earth Trads. Please subscribe, like and share it.
This is ultimately a mystery relationship. There's something mysterious. And how much, the question that keeps troubling me is how much good faith, how much bad faith is there in these people? God knows. It's a question I keep coming back to, and I think it varies, but I mean, I'm sure that John Paul II and Cardinal Ratzinger, both of whom are modernists, I'm sure that they're convinced that they're good Catholics. And my explanation of that is that this rot is now so universal that it's normal. And so anybody who gets into this thinks he's perfectly normal. And there's only, a few old-fashioned cave dwellers who tell them that they're not normal, who tell them that they're wrong. And so, the Pope has, how many bishops are there now? Maybe 4,000 bishops in the world? I mean, or a few years ago, he had, I think it was up to 4,000, and there were only, out of 3,998 told him he was Catholic. Either because they were liberals that were fighting him because he was so backwards, or conservatives who were telling him that he's Catholic because he's so resisting so well the liberals. But in either case, they're all telling him that he's Catholic, and there's just the Honourable Bishop Castelmine, the Archbishop, who are telling him that he wasn't. Why should he take too seriously when the 3,998 are telling him that he's a great guy? The same with Ratzinger. I'm sure Ratzinger is convinced that he's a good Catholic. I'm sure he's convinced it. And yet he has got no idea of what the faith is really about. I'm afraid. It's astonishing. The quotations are there to prove it. Well, let's have a look at the rest of Pashenny, and then we'll maybe come on to one or two modern examples. So, the causes, the section on causes is interesting. How do people get into this? And he says, first there are the roots, and then there are the fruits. The roots are moral, and then intellectual. 40, the moral roots are curiosity and pride. Reason relying on itself and seeking novelty falls into all errors. Self-reliance, I think I can work it out. Self-reliant reason, so it's rationalism. Secondly, pride. The modernists are self-assured, they're presumptuous, that's badly spelled, it should be U-O-U-S. They are disobedient and they're disrespectful. This system perfectly fits pride, because this system makes me the king of creation, because I am the creator of the object. I say what's behind the appearances. I create the object. It's no longer the object imposing itself on me, which is common sense. It's I who impose my thoughts on the object. Therefore, I am the king of creation. I am the creator. I am God. On this system, I become God. So this system suits pride very well. All right, the modernists are self-assured, presumptuous, disobedient, disrespectful. Pride is the name of the game with modernism. Kant was a very proud man. But remember what the Pope said at the beginning. They're disguised. They're outwardly correct. Outwardly, the appearances are kept very well. But inwardly, they're ravening wolves, ravening with pride. Then he goes on to ignorance. Ignorance of scholasticism falls prey to the false glamour of modern philosophy. That's very important. Modern philosophy has a false glamour. It's very glamorous. It's very slick. It's very prestigious. It's very much loved by the modern world. But it's as false it's as phony as a $3 bill. But if you don't know the truth, and if you don't have a decent philosophy, you can easily fall for modern philosophy. That's why the Pope will say the first remedy is to put the true philosophy into the seminaries. That's Thomism, St. Thomas. Then the fruits of all of this are firstly negative and then positive. The modernists make a relentless war on scholasticism and tradition. They hate St. Thomas Aquinas because St. Thomas Aquinas has got their number. all the philosophical answers to this foolishness, this instantaneous Aquinas. They also hate tradition. They hate the magisterium. They despise 42b, the church fathers and the magisterium and its defenders. The CC No articles, which are going to come out one by one from the Angelus, I strongly recommend. They're not easy reading, but they're well worth studying. Read them one by one as they come out, and then read them again and read them a third time. You may think it's beyond you, but if you read, I recommend you try. I really recommend you try, because it gives you the game plan, the ideas, and the coherency of not of modernism, but of neo-modernism. In other words, the updated version of what Pius X was condemning. And the updated version is even more pernicious than what Pius X was condemning. Why is it even more pernicious? Anybody? Why do you think it's even more pernicious? Why is neo-modernism even worse than modernism?
Because it's approved from all
Yes, it's approved.
Whereas modernism wasn't approved in the beginning.
Yes.
And now it's accepted as common.
That's extrinsic. Why? I think it's intrinsically even more perverse. Why might it be inside itself?
It's covered under the appearances of good.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
visible to the naked eye.
Yes. It's even more hidden. Neo-modernism is even more hidden than modernism was. I think that's true to say. It's even more disguised than modernism. I think that's true. Because Karl Ratzinger and John Paul II, they looked like good guys. They looked like conservatives. Now, neo-modernism, the Karl Rahners and the Hans Kuhns are not the real danger. The wild guys are not the real danger. The real danger are the moderates that look so conservative, like Ratzinger. Ratzinger, and I'm not attacking his person. He may be a criminal, but that's not the point. The point is his ideas, he looks like a good guy. He's fooling a lot of people. St. Peter's and the Wanderer, and, look at all the people exulting over Denver. What's just happened in Denver? They think the Pope's a good guy. And the Catholic Eye, and what's his name, McFadden, I think, in New York. The Pope can do no wrong. Because there's so much that looks Catholic. Because, you see, the original modernists, they were bad guys. And once the Pope, especially after the Pope had shown they were bad guys, there was no more pretending. But the neo-modernists have relaunched the pretense that they're good guys. And they themselves are convinced that they're good guys. I'm sure Karl Ratzinger and John Paul II are convinced in themselves that they're good guys. Or they convince themselves a long way that they're good guys. God only knows. It's even more complicated and even more, I think, it's more complicated than ever. And more disguised than ever. And more difficult to disentangle than ever. I think. I've got that argument. I'll lay it out to you in a few moments. All right. They despise the church fathers and magisterial defenders. Preaching, teaching, and writing, they poisoned the whole church with error. And actually, they didn't get away with it then. Pope Pius X was scared, and because of the action he took, he scotched them. He stopped them doing that. But had they got away with it, that's what they would have done then. And then they would also, in a way, have been convinced they were good guys. But I think that today they're even more convinced they're good guys. The psychology of a modernist. I just sort of lose my footing. Very difficult to get inside how their minds work and so on. But I think I keep referring to these articles of CC No. These articles of CC No are a very get inside their minds pretty well. And it's complicated. Right, the remedies. We ran through these the other day, but it won't take very long because this is not complicated. We've got to react more vigorously than Leo XIII did. Leo XIII was already beginning to react against modernism, but we've tried the soft answer, it won't work. We've got to be tough, said the Pope. Scholasticism, in other words, a decent philosophy. This problem is philosophical. In order to stop nonsense philosophy, make sure that the young clerics learn the true philosophy. Let them be taught a true, sane, healthy, common sense philosophy, which is St. Thomas Aquinas. It always has been and it always will be. You don't need to change from St. Thomas Aquinas. You need to add on a little bit. There are developments of St. Thomas, but that's enough. Especially in metaphysics, which is the basic part of philosophy. Let clerics learn theology so as to admire, love and delight in it. The problem with the Vatican II bishops, they knew their theology, but they didn't love and delight in it. They loved and delighted in Teilhard de Chardin. That was their problem. They had not learned their theology in such a way that they loved it. They didn't love the truth. Again, it comes back to that. They had the truth, but they didn't love it. They loved the newspapers and the media and error, and so the Lord God let them all go off into error.
So point 45 and 46 must be connected, necessary.
Yes. Let the youngsters be given a love of St. Thomas Aquinas. That's crucial. It's no use teaching St. Thomas Aquinas like a crossword puzzle, so that they can write it all out well for their exams, but they don't grasp it. You've got to get St. Thomas into the bloodstream, in other words, the bloodstream of the mind, and they've got to love it. That's crucial. You can teach St. Thomas like a crossword puzzle. It's so brilliant, it all fits together so well. But then you've got to realize that it isn't just a crossword puzzle. And then, you see, if you teach it like a crossword puzzle, then you've got Kant's crossword puzzle over here, you've got St. Thomas's crossword puzzle over there, you've got another crossword puzzle here, you've got another crossword puzzle there. You've just got a whole range of crossword puzzles. And then you teach philosophy like, well, this one thought this, that one thought that, then this one thought this, and then that one thought that. You teach the history of philosophy. You don't teach the truth. But St. Thomas is the truth, and none of the other systems are complete truth. All of them, insofar as they depart from St. Thomas, or only lead up to St. Thomas, they're more or less deficient. St. Thomas is pretty pure truth. He made one or two errors, but they're not important. You can very easily disengage what's erroneous, particularly taken from the science of his day. For instance, he thinks that the moon is made out of the quintessence. Yeah, that doesn't matter at all. Now we know it's made out of carbon and hydrogen and nitrogen, that silicon. That's not a problem. You can easily disengage what he took erroneous now, or thought to be erroneous, from the science of his day. But the principles, his principles, are absolutely gilt-edged. And that's what the moderns refuse. This is not a question of, carbon and nitrogen. This is, I don't know what's on the other side of the phenomenon, that's got nothing to do with modern science. It's a deep refusal of reality. Metaphysics.
Now, what is metaphysics exactly?
Okay, metaphysics. Metaphysics it comes from the Greek. Meta meaning after, and physica, things physical. So metaphysica is that department of philosophy which, instead of studying things material, studies the even deeper rules of being which lie behind the material. For instance, the study of physics absolutely doesn't apply to the angels, because in the angels there's no matter. But the rules of metaphysics apply to human beings, to the donkeys and the ants, to the grass, to the angels, and to God himself. St. Thomas Aquinas teaches, it's unquestionably true, not even God can break the laws of metaphysics. God can break the laws of physics, because the Lord God can easily make water flow uphill.
But isn't God the law? Isn't he the law?
No, God
made the world. He put the law in.
Yes, but he didn't make the laws of metaphysics. God did not create the laws of metaphysics.
Who created?
The laws of metaphysics are not created. The laws of metaphysics are, for instance, the law of contradiction. They're the laws of being. God is the master. This is the 25th question of the prima part. God is the master of all being. But, for instance, something contradictory lies outside of being. And therefore not even God has power over the contradictory. For instance, not even God can cause that I did not clap my hands. I clap my hands, that belongs to the past, and not even God can change the past. Not even God can make Mary Magdalene not to have sinned, say the Church Fathers. But he can make her now so penitent and so pure that it is as if she had never sinned. That he can do, but he can't change the past.
So otherwise, all these theories about time machines will never be able to construct something like this.
That's physical nonsense. That's just a violation of common sense.
So God is unable to make 2 + 2 makes 5.
Of course he is. Of course he's unable. Of course he's unable.
But
Because it wouldn't be true.
It wouldn't be true. It's outside truth, it's outside reason.
it's impossible for him to go against truth because he is truth.
That's right.
So it's a contradiction just
That's it, you see.
words
Yes,
confusing.
yes. That's correct.
But the enemy
Now,
might
it's
use that.
an interesting point. We're getting into deep theology here, and the interesting point is that some schools of theology, especially the Scotists, say that God has got that kind of power. But you get into all kinds of trouble if you say it. If you exaggerate the power of God, the truth is like a whole delicately balanced system. And if you make an exaggeration here, it has consequences all over the place. The same with Catholic dogma. If you say the Immaculate Conception is not true or something, it has consequences all over the place. It's a very closely knitted and closely balanced system. And you mustn't exaggerate in one sense or in the other. And Pius X is saying, sometimes in metaphysics, in these deep, deep questions, in these deep and difficult questions of the ultimate laws of reality, Thomas Aquinas got it right. And you mustn't go against it. And you depart from St. Thomas Aquinas at your peril. And that's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
Your Excellency.
Yes.
Could the cause of metaphysics be the actual cause of cause and effect, the fruit of cause and effect?
Well, the rules of causality belong to metaphysics, yes.
Right? I mean, water runs down like a few other items. You
That's
know what I'm
physics,
saying?
yes.
That's physics, right?
Yes.
So,
But the law of cause and effect, every effect has a cause. And for instance, nothing can cause itself.
right.
The cause, the effect cannot exceed its cause. Nobody gives what he has not got. These principles of common sense on the one hand, but also principles of deep metaphysics. The laws of reality, God is submitted to those as well. I mean, God operates according to those laws, and God can't change those laws of metaphysics.
That's too deep for us.
So who created all these laws?
They are created. They are in being. And the Lord God, you have to think about it, you have to start reading some theology, but some Thomistic theology. You can go and be a Scotist if you like. The church does not forbid you to be a Scotist. But here's St. Thomas. Here's the Pope, who knows all about modernism, saying the first answer to modernism is a proper philosophy. And he doesn't just say a proper philosophy, he says Thomistic philosophy. He says scholasticism and St. Thomas Aquinas.
These Scotists you mentioned,
Yes.
condemned by church.
No, they're not condemned, but because you see, look at it this way. The church wants to save souls. If I'm going to save my soul with a slightly wrong philosophy, the wrong philosophy doesn't matter. See, the church insists only upon those truths which are necessary for salvation. The others, the church is not, you see, supposing you're a Scotist and I start closing in on you and hammering you, you might say, well, in that case, forget about Catholicism. I'm going to go and be a Buddhist. And I don't want to do that. So I'm going to insist upon Immaculate Conception, I'm going to insist upon the existence of God, but I'm not going to insist upon Scotism, because you can save your soul while you're a Scotist.
So what do you think? There is a group of matters which are being discussed by theologians,
Yes.
but they are not affirmed by church.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
But Archbishop condemned theological discoveries in open letter. Such a thing like theological discovery doesn't exist.
Yes, but you see, that's the modern kind of theological discovery, which is no longer Scotus. I mean, Scotus had the Catholic faith. Duns Scotus had the faith. And Duns Scotus on the question of the Immaculate Conception was actually right. So Duns Scotus was no dummy. But Duns Scotus has a univocal concept of being. What's all that? You know, I mean, you're getting into technical questions which are deep and which are important, but they're not strictly necessary for salvation. But here, Pius X is saying, in the 20th century, in this difficult situation of the 20th century, we have got to take a stand on St. Thomas. You see, Scotus was a Franciscan, and the Franciscans came along in the 13th century when most people had common sense. You see, this question of philosophy is an interesting question, but I've taken it in comparison with a vineyard. In the old days, you planted a vine, and the vine grew, and there was no problem. Today, you have to squirt sulfur over it 3 or 4 times in the summer in order to get any fruit at all. Right? And if you don't squirt sulfur, you're not going to get anything. Now, the same with Catholicism. In the 13th century, you didn't have to squirt sulfur on people's minds. But here's the Pope saying, if you don't squirt St. Thomas on people's minds, we're not going to get any fruits. Because the atmosphere is poisoned, because the modern world is poisoned. Like it or not, you may say, I'd much rather we were back in the Middle Ages when the atmosphere wasn't poisoned. A farmer can well say, I'd much rather I didn't have to squirt sulfur all over my vineyard. But if he refuses to, he's not going to get any fruits. And therefore today we're in a different situation because of the corruption of the world. The corruption has advanced, and therefore St. Pius X is saying Thomas is more necessary today than he was 400 or 700 years ago. You follow?
Yes.
Therefore, be a Scotist. As long as you've got some common sense, you can get away with being a Scotist. Scotus is a Franciscan. You know what the Franciscans are like. Love, love, love. You know, it's just sort of, you know, poverty, poverty, poverty. You never have to wash. You know, you're just love, 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 poverty, poverty, poverty. And, you know, I mean, yeah, it's great being a Franciscan. You know, the flowers and the birds and so on and so on and so on. You know, I mean, but you know, it's no longer enough. It needs a bit more than that today. Back in the Middle Ages, it was fine, and a whole host of souls who didn't know one end of Dominican theology from the other, who didn't know the back from the beginning of a book of the Summa, you know, who never looked, but they could understand St. Francis, and they loved, 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 and they all went to heaven.
Oh, boy, they loved that.
The Franciscans sent a lot of souls to heaven. But today, love, 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 instead of being spelled L-O-V-E, 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 today, love, love, love is spelled L-U-V, L-U-V, L-U-V. It's a completely different ball game. And it's a very false ball game, this love, love, love stuff. And therefore, St. Francis today needs something more, so to speak. If you tell somebody today, love, 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 they're not going to take it properly. They're going to take it falsely because of the corruption. And therefore, you've got today, you have to do more thinking. Thomas has become more necessary than ever. That doesn't mean to say that the laity must study St. Thomas, but it does mean that the laity have got to watch out for this kind of nonsense. And they've got to do some thinking. They've got to do more thinking than they had to do.
What book could you recommend as introduction or something?
Well, again, the moment you're getting into philosophy, the common sense is immensely valuable. Common sense is immensely valuable. If you ask the question, what should we do in this direction? My answer is, don't let anybody make fun of your common sense. Don't let anybody make fun of your common sense. Because these characters, they love making fun of common sense. This is the first thing they do. For instance, you go as a student into a big modern university. You go into the philosophy department of the modern university, and the first thing the philosopher does, the teacher in that is, he puts his feet on the desk and he says, okay guys, how do you know I'm here? Right? Well, Professor, we can see you, we can hear you. Yeah, but how do you know that what you're seeing and hearing is true? Well, come on. I mean, see, the first thing they do, the very first thing they do in these philosophy departments in the modern universities is undermine your common sense, so that they can then push all of their stupid nonsense. Therefore, the layman's St. Thomas, the layman's Summa Philosophiae, is his common sense. And a countryman's common sense, not a city dweller's common sense, because that's already probably half plastic. A non-plastic common sense. You know, there's night is night, day is day, the wind rustles in the trees, the sun is warm, cars operate because they burn gas. All of this, a cat is a cat and it isn't a dog, all of this is surprisingly important today. And when I see a stick, it's a stick and it isn't anything else. When I see a door, it's a door. When I see a wall, it's a wall. This is today surprisingly important because it's all undermined by this nonsense. Therefore, if you say to me, what book should we read on philosophy? My answer is, reading books on philosophy is not for everybody. It's actually only for a few people. If you want the name of a book, Maritain, Introduction to Philosophy. That's a very good one to start with. But I wouldn't say that even most of you here should read it. You might, because you ask too many questions. Maritain, Introduction to Philosophy. But I'm not recommending that a large number of you, even those of you that are here, read it. Right? A number of you would read it, and you just you say, what's all that about? You can the ordinary person, Maritain, the ordinary person must resist this nonsense with his common sense, and common sense is enough. So, for goodness sakes, keep your common sense, and don't let anybody make fun of it. That's enough. That's enough for your purposes, probably. And then your catechism is your supernatural common sense. Keep your natural common sense and your supernatural common sense with your catechism. Your catechism, your penny catechism, is worth 3,000 volumes of theology. It's the world's greatest wisdom packed into 32 or 64 pages. And don't let anybody despise your penny catechism. With your penny catechism and your common sense, that's what you've got to use to stand up to these characters.
If possible, if a person can get a hold of some of the traditional books in epistemology,
yes,
if you could get any of those.
Epistemology is the study of knowledge. Again, your common sense is better. Because if you start studying the books, I'll have to go into this question a little. If you start studying the process of knowledge, you're already putting a question mark against the process of knowledge. If you put a question mark against the process of knowledge, you're already beginning to play their game. You follow? So the condition on which you study these books of epistemology is that you have absolutely no doubt that you know. Once you start allowing the least little doubt whether you know or not, for instance, whether you're hearing me or not, whether you're seeing me or not, once you admit the least little doubt there, you're going to become a monist.
There's an excellent book on epistemology by Father Bickle.
Well, if you, yes,
sometimes you have to, it's not a case of any great study in depth.
Right.
But if you want to know, let's say, where Descartes went wrong or where Kant went wrong, you have to consult a book like that.
Okay, well, what's the Father Bickle?
Father Bickle.
How do you spell that? B-I-double-D-L-E?
B-I-T-T-L-E.
B-I-T-T-L-E. Okay, and it's Introduction to Epistemology.
No, it's epistemology.
Epistemology. So there's another book. But I don't think that for the ordinary person reading books of philosophy is much to be recommended. It's
mixed up.
It's too easy to get confused. Right. It's too easy to get confused.
Common sense for us.
Common sense, yes. And common sense is that I know that a cat is a cat, the dog is a dog, the sun is shining, and that's a door and that's a wall.
Well, wasn't that a fine example why our Lord chose St. Bernadette?
Well, it's got a lot to do with it.
Humility there, that not seeking of...
See, when the church is operating as she ought to operate, you have a few intellectuals, but not many. You don't need many. You need just enough to keep the sewers clean, so that the sewers don't get clogged up. The Dominicans were not in large numbers. They weren't needed in large numbers. And whoever does intellectualize his faith is always tempted by crime. Because scientia inflat caritas inhibiet. St. Paul says, knowledge puffs up. There's always a danger of intellectualism and of intellectual pride. There's always that danger.
We hope that you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and share.